Let's talk about 10 essential traits for your psychedelic integration. Kind of like a full guide to transform your life on a deeper level. Because what I've noticed in my journey and with a couple of my coaching clients is that those psychedelic experiences are great, right? We have these openings, we have these insights, we have these revelations, a vision of how we want to truly live our life, how we want our embodiment to look like. But then at times we come back to our day-to-day life and we get kind of pulled back into old habits, old behaviors, ways of being in the world that are not fully aligned anymore, right? And kind of like our mindset is also shifting back to old ways of thinking and old patterns of thinking. And what I've noticed is kind of that these mindsets, our character traits kind of, that we can develop, are at the base and at the foundation of directing our behavior. So it's no wonder that if we just try to change our behavior on the outside of like, I gotta fix this bad habit, I gotta clean up, I gotta eat better food, or have better relationships, this surface level problem solving doesn't work as much as kind of the core mindset that is running our actions, that is running our behavior, is skewed up, like it's distorted. It's rooted and based on perceptions of the world that are not serving us and that are then secretly holding us back, maybe even unconsciously. So why this is important is because if we then truly change the set, not just the set with which we approach the psychedelic experience, but the set with which we approach our life, that's where a possibility, a potential opens up for us to truly shift and change. By the way, I'm Vergo and this is Psychedelic Integration. If you're curious about diving deeper into 5 steps that you can take to truly embody your psychedelic insights on a daily basis, I wrote a free guide which you can download by clicking the link below. I noticed in myself this framework of giving importance to the essential traits that I want to cultivate in myself, kind of the character traits, when I think I was 17 or 18 years old. And I kind of got into psychedelic space when I was 16. And I had all these revelations on all these experiences, right? It was almost like the honeymoon phase of my relationship with psychedelics. And they showed me all these beautiful things and this potential of how I truly want to be. But in this phase of my life, my mindset was still anchored in certain beliefs and certain assumptions and certain desires that were directing my behavior. One crucial one I remember, for example, is that I wanted everything to happen fast. I wanted the immediate shortcut to get to God realization, to get to awakening, to get to financial independence, right? This is one of the kind of the traits my mind was cultivating, of always seeking an instant solution, an instant gratification, which then also led to kind of the perpetuation of my habits of watching porn, not being able to eat good food, playing video games, watching too many movies, smoking too much weed, and all of this was kind of the circle that was just repeating itself on unconsciously, automatically, even though there was a desire to break out of this. And as soon as I kind of really dove deep into these new character traits, into kind of principles on how I want to approach the world, then, only then, I noticed a shift in my behavior as well, as that was kind of following through on the perception of who I am and the principles by which I live by and which I value. So in this video I want to go into the 10 essential traits kind of that have helped me on my journey of integrating this version of myself that is truly aligned with my highest potential. And these traits can help to approach a psychedelic experience, right, as a form of preparation for a psychedelic experience, as these traits also really help us in the psychedelic experience itself, and kind of even supercharge the transformational process of the psychedelic trip itself, and also in the integration part, as a following through, as a principle by which to live by, and a practice by which we can cultivate these traits. So number one is courage. The courage to go inward and face our fears is kind of the key to our liberation, right? True transformation begins when we bravely explore the depth of our inner world, despite the fear that we're feeling. And it's good and fine to have this courage to go into a psychedelic experience, right? Sign up for that ayahuasca retreat. Go and look for some 5-MeO-DMT or whatever. It's like even that like readiness to go into the journey itself takes a certain sense of courage. And that's a beautiful practice even. But then the integration part is to take this practice of mustering up the courage to go into a psychedelic ceremony and apply that willingness and readiness to look at your fears and your hesitations and blocks in your day-to-day life. Right? It takes up a lot of courage to have a tough conversation with a loved one. But there, right, when it comes to a tough conversation with a loved one, we're too afraid to have that. Right? We might have the courage to go into one ayahuasca retreat after the next, one psychedelic experience after the next, to face our fears and our inner demons. But when it comes to having that tough conversation with a loved one, with your partner, with a family member, where you feel like there's a certain sense of disalignment, where you could come to a greater place of harmony, that's where we retreat back. We're like, oh, I'm too afraid to do that. I'd rather do something else, something that's more important. I would rather distract myself and fall into old behaviors. That's where kind of the cultivation of courage comes in. To say like, okay, even in my day-to-day life, what am I afraid of? I might have the notion and inclination that my daily habit of smoking cannabis is not serving me anymore. And I might want to look at this relationship, but I'm too afraid. I'm too afraid of this. This takes courage to then say, okay, let me see how my life looks like without cannabis for a couple of weeks. Let me approach this conversation. Let me actually quit my job that is not aligned with my highest purpose, with my vision, with a deeply meaningful and joyful life that I know I could live. Right? That takes courage. That's the practice of courage. And cultivating that character trait of being like, hey, I am a courageous person. I'm feeling the fear. I'm doing it anyways. And I'm trusting, which we're going to come to in life, to guide me on my way, to really follow that resonance that we have experienced in psychedelic space. So that's character trait number one. And I encourage you to contemplate what each of these words mean for you. It's a powerful practice to say like, hey, each of these words, each of these character traits, they're just labels. They're just labels that basically, or symbols that basically don't mean anything. Unless you look at them and you inquire and contemplate for yourself what it truly means for you. What does it truly mean for you to be courageous, to embody this sense of courage in your life, to cultivate that and take that on as a practice? So that's a good practice to take that and define that for yourself, because we're free. Basically everything is just like a label or a symbol that we interpret and define for ourselves. We have so much power over choosing how we perceive reality. The second trait is a big one. It's a sense of maturity, which speaks also to this sense of courage. And maturity speaks to taking full responsibility for our growth and embracing the reality of life as it is. I noticed when I was stuck in my old patterns, right? And kind of like in this perpetual cycle of not being able to get out of smoking weed and following up on bad habits and actually wanting to integrate good ones, my mind was immature. It was not ready to take on the responsibility for my actions. I would rather say like, hey, this is a cycle that is happening. It's just something that's happening. And I can't do anything about it. And I'm kind of like a victim to my behavior. I'm a victim to the addiction that I'm following through it. And then there's kind of like another layer of rationalizing it to talk it good for myself, to kind of talk to myself and say like, it's not that bad. The pleasure is worth the cost. the instant gratification is actually serving me. That's it. From my perspective now, that was kind of like, it felt like an immature perspective and an immature mindset with which I approached my own transformation and the psychedelic integration, right? Maturity, just as courage, requires facing our own shadows and moving beyond the illusion to see the truth of the situation. And this often means accepting the discomfort of personal growth. Saying like, not getting lost in the affirmation of like, I have a good life, I have a good life, I have a good life. And you're like, in your heart it's not aligned. But saying like, okay, I'm willing to see the truth and to accept the truth, to embrace the truth of my situation. This is skewed up, the place I'm living in. Or this part of my life, there's a greater potential, which I see, but which I'm not following through on. And then recognizing the truth of that situation, the truth of that reality, cutting through all the illusion, feeling that, being a little bit in the discomfort. And from there, we can envision a life which is more aligned and move towards that. Through that tension of the structure, of the reality of the situation itself and the vision of our life that we want to create. And that tension can then move us towards realizing that vision. And that requires taking responsibility. So maturity starts the day we take responsibility for our lives. It's one of the core principles of my Psychonauts Path to Purpose program that I'm running. It's called the Triune of True Transformation, part of kind of like the 11 golden guiding principles for this program. And one of them is taking 100% responsibility. Responsibility also meaning we take charge of how we respond to situation, right? Response ability. It's our ability to respond to the reality of our situation. And then being able to take ownership of how we face that, how we approach that, right? And that for me kind of is the essence of this aspect of maturity. And it helped me a great deal on my journey of psychedelic integration to kind of stay in the center point of my maturity. To not idealize a certain situation, but also not fall into this victim mentality, but kind of stay at a balancing point of perception. So maturity also big and interesting one to contemplate for yourself what that means for you. So we got the courage, we got the maturity, the responsibility, and then now I kind of want to move forward into more spiritual, like lofty terms, which have also guided me a great deal on my journey of integration. And some of them might sound similar, but there's like subtle differences in each and every one of them. So number 3 is faith. Faith is a big word. A lot of responses I get regarding faith is related to religion. But for me personally, faith is deeper than just like a religious faith. But for me, actually, faith is kind of like the trust in life's intelligence and the unknown, born through surrender, which is another one. Trust and surrender are 2 other ones which we're going to get into. But by trusting the process, right, and surrendering, we cultivate a deep sense of faith that allows us to endure and grow from our challenges. Because the challenges are inevitable on our journey. I have yet to meet somebody who has not had any challenges on their journey. Everyone I talk to has challenges on their journey. And they keep coming up. And they keep coming up. And there's more challenges and more challenges. And then you resolve one and another one is right around the corner. Cultivating a deep sense of faith in the intelligence of life itself, in the divine, in that divine force that we might have glimpsed in our psychedelic journeys. To trust that allowed me to flow into my situations, with my life, with a greater sense of ease, which then leads to a greater sense of realization, which then leads to a greater sense of opening up to life, which then leads to beautiful consequences, because I'm open and willing to receive. And I'm trusting that whatever I'm going to receive, if it might be the next challenge that's around the corner or a humanly perceived blessing, is something that I can grow from, which is exactly meant to be for me. So cultivating that trust and that faith in the higher intelligence of life, I found, is a crucial character trait. I haven't really mastered it, right? There's layers to this, and it feels like it's with each one of these character traits, it's a lifelong process of mastery, of going into deeper and deeper layers of these traits and cultivate and strengthen them within yourself. And the next one, kind of related but slightly different taste, is forgiveness. Forgiveness requires sitting with the weight of our shame and releasing the past. When we look at falling back into our old ways of being, into behaviors, into cowardness, right? Oftentimes I have experienced in my journey a great sense of shame that came up. Not necessarily regarding others, of like, hey, I want others to perceive me as this great being that is ultimately having a handle on everything that's going on in life. But no, a sense of shame that toward myself, because I kept breaking promises to myself. I was like, because I kind of knew and understood, and I was reading my first couple of books at that time, where I was like, I understood that I need to break these bad habits. So I made a plan, a challenge. One thing I did was kind of like create a 90-day challenge of like, I'm gonna eat raw vegan food and quit smoking weed and quit watching porn and quit watching videos altogether and quit video games at the same time as I don't know, like meditating 2 hours a day, having 2-hour yoga routine, journaling 1 hour a day, reading 1 hour a day, and exercising 2 hours a day. And it's like, you see, made all these promises to myself, which then I broke because I was trying to fix the external instead of deeply changing and cultivating these traits, which then led to a sense of shame of like, oh, I am not able to do this. See, now I have the evidence, and that kind of formulates an assumption within my own mind of making me believe that I can't do the things that I set out to do. So, and then this kind of reinforces the cycle of these habits and of these not aligned ways of being in the world. And from this place of shame, of course, it's understandable that no true transformation or integration of the experiences is going to happen. So cultivating a sense of instant forgiveness has been one of the keys of my journey. True healing comes from forgiving ourselves, which only happens by embracing our deepest regrets and moving through them. Not suppressing them, not neglecting them, but looking them at the eye, kind of like, as I said, with the maturity, facing truth head on. And then saying, hey, I forgive myself. It's kind of also deeply related to cultivating the sense of self-love. Instantly. Like, that's kind of the practice. What I try to do is like to kind of shorten the time frame from the feeling of shame or regret that is arising in me to the point where I'm able to fully feel that I have forgiven myself. And nowadays it's kind of moved to this sense where it's like it's super close. Like I fall back into a certain behavior that I might perceive as not being fully aligned with how I want to show up. And then it's like a second later, like, and then I feel regret and shame. And then a second later, there's like this true sense of forgiveness. Sitting, feeling the shame of like, boom, releasing it. Not holding on to the past, not letting my mind formulate assumptions about who I am or what I can or cannot do, but kind of instantly swiping the slate clean. But truly doing that, not then telling myself that I do that and still repressing the shame and kind of not wanting to feel it, but truly releasing it in the moment. And that's a practice. And that's a practice of forgiveness. And again, relating that to psychedelic space, this sense of forgiveness is a trait that kind of the psychedelic journeys have taught me at times, where they were like opening me up to this shame, this regret, this disaligned version. And I was like, okay, but then with this sense of awareness, which was bringing in this sense of self-love, of fully accepting and embracing myself as I am. And then saying, okay, I forgive myself. And then the next three are very similar to each other. It's letting go, surrendering, and trusting. Let's start with letting go. And they all sound very similar, but there's like slight differences. And there's also a beauty in contemplating the distinctions between each of them and really seeing what flavor maybe resonates most with you, what flavor of a label or of a word resonates most with you. So letting go has been one of my key practices in psychedelic space. Right from the beginning of my psychedelic journey, I was like embracing a psychedelic experience with the core character trait of letting go. Letting go means releasing control over outcomes and embracing the flow of life, right? Growth happens when we release our grip on expectations, identity, and past patterns, opening ourselves up to new dimensions of experience. And in the psychedelic experience, it was kind of like easy. I was like, oh, this is happening naturally for me. Of course, I would let go of control and just be open to receive whatever the psychedelic wants to show me, even though I might have an intention and direct a little bit, but with this background intention of letting go to whatever is emerging in the space. Wonderful. But then when it comes to my daily life, ooh, the mind takes over. And the mind is very active. And it loves to be in control. Our minds love to be in control. I don't know how about yours, but it's like my mind loves to be in control. Over analyzing, overthinking, holding on, and really having like a tight grip on things, having like this tension, and not letting go, not surrendering, not trusting, not having enough faith. And which then creates a sense of struggle, a sense of effort, which leads to a sense of dissatisfaction, almost like when I try to control my habits, I try to control, right, the ways of what I should do or shouldn't do, what I tell myself. There is an energy of pushing, and an energy of wanting to get rid of or resisting certain ways of being, which is not helpful, I guess. I found to really move into this transformative experience of embodiment and integration. Actually, it's like blocking that shift that wants to happen naturally by us just overly being in control and wanting to be in control of all the pieces and bringing in this sense of tension and resistance. But by letting go, we actually open ourselves up for this shift to happen, to let go of certain parts that are not serving anymore, and kind of letting that process happen automatically. There's a beautiful saying, I don't know where I picked it up, maybe somewhere in the Taoist kind of camp. It's like, don't try to push the river, it flows by itself. Right? We're not trying to push a river. There's no point in pushing a river. It just flows by itself. And we are that river, right? Flowing to the ocean. And by letting go, not trying to swim upstream, but flowing in the natural rhythms of the river itself, we can cultivate a greater sense of ease, relaxation, which then automatically kind of flows into an acceleration of our transformation, of our integration. And another aspect of letting go is also a death, almost. Like, when we let go of certain parts of ourselves that are not serving anymore, basically certain parts of ourselves are dying. Certain past patterns, even like a part of our identity, our identification with behavior, right? Saying like, I am a pothead. I love smoking weed. I love watching anime shows. I love playing League of Legends, this video game. I love partying. I love whatever it might be. And then you recognize it's like it's not aligned anymore. And when you let go, then this practice of letting go, let go of that in your life, and you practice and cultivate this sense of letting go, you basically let go of a part of yourself. You let a part of yourself die. And it's okay to grieve about that a little bit. Saying like, I don't actually want to let go of that part of myself. But deep inside your heart knows of like, hey, this next phase in my life, this certain part of myself, it's not aligned anymore. And that's scary. kind of circling back to the courage, to the faith, to say like, okay, who will I be? Who will I be if I let go of that part of myself? Then I don't know who I am anymore. But then letting go, trusting into that, which we're going to come to, into that something new will emerge. That's a practice of letting go, a big part of it. And it's this continuous process. Even nowadays, for me, it's scary to let go of certain parts of myself, which I thought to have integrated and which I liked, right? And it's a process, right? To let go of that and let that river flow. Make space for the version of yourself that wants to emerge. Right? Again, I think it was Lao Tzu who said something, I'm paraphrasing, along the lines of like, if you let go of who you are, you might become who you are meant to be. Right? And it's a tough one. It's a good one, but kind of to get started on this practice of letting go of yourself and letting go into this process of integration and transformation is a wonderful character trait that I have taken on for myself. And the next one that's closely related to that is surrendering. Surrendering is the act of fully engaging with whatever shows up without attachment of the outcome. Right? It's about staying present and curious with each and every situation, embracing all of life's experiences, the joy and the pain alike, while trusting that everything unfolds as it should. So when we let go of all these parts of ourselves, there's still going to be joy and pain emerging, right? There's duality of life, which is unfolding in front of us. But to surrender into that means not to retreat back, but it actually means to engage fully with whatever is present. It's like moving forward energy of really surrendering into it. And again, this kind of like, it speaks to this facilitation of acceleration. Being like a surrender is kind of like a catalyst of your transformation as you open yourself up again, you embrace and you flow into the change that is occurring naturally. Letting go of control, right? Without the attachment of the outcome is also a very beautiful piece of this word of surrendering for myself. To really say like, hey, I don't want this to be any different than it is. I don't know how the new version of myself looks like when I have integrated this higher self, this higher, more aligned version of myself, but I'm not attached to the outcome. Letting go of the outcome. Not clinging to anything, not having any expectation of how that might look like. Because even like the slightest sense of expectations of like, hey, I would like to like this version of myself to look like this is bringing in this sense of control again. It's counteracting this natural flow of integration that wants to happen. So we are kind of trusting that everything is unfolding as it should. And that's tough at times, right? That's tough at times. And surrendering also means following your resonance, this kind of true feeling of excitement or bliss, right? Kind of trusting that, following that. Surrendering is kind of like a combination of active receptivity toward and curiosity about whatever is showing up. Like in this constant state of like, wow, I wonder what's next. Like I flow with life and this relationship breaks apart and this part of myself feels not aligned anymore. And it's like, wow, that's tough. I wonder what's next. And I'm open for that. I flow into that with the willingness and the readiness to receive. And again, that doesn't mean it feels good. It doesn't mean that it's what you expect or what you would like it to be. That's the beauty of it. And then trusting that is kind of the seventh point of trusting that intelligence of life. Trusting is that deep belief that the universe, life, God is guiding you even when you don't understand the path. In surrendering to this unknown that is unfolding, we develop a profound sense of trust in the process of life and the bigger picture, right? I think it was Goethe that says, "I trust myself to nature. She may do with me as she will." Whatever you want to call it, is if it's life or nature or God, find a word that's fitting for you, but to trust ourselves to that, saying like, hey, here I am, this is me. I trust this. I trust that this is what my path looks like. There's a beautiful quote by, I think it was Bruce Schneider, like the founder of IPEC, the coaching program that I did, the coach training program, and he said something along the lines of, true success is not doing the best you can, nor being who you are, but knowing that those two are one and the same. So trusting that, trusting yourself, trusting life, trusting in that process of transformation that wants to unfold is a beautiful way to cultivate that. Number 8 is wisdom. A character trait of developing true wisdom. And wisdom is kind of the ability to combine knowledge with life experience, right? Turning it into an embodied understanding, a way of being, not just over intellectualizing your insights, but actually embodying them based on your experience. And you have had so many beautiful experiences, so many deep and profound psychedelic experiences, which develops an understanding. And then to embody that understanding is kind of the practice of wisdom, right? Wisdom doesn't come from just us knowing facts or a certain truth about the universe, but from integrating those perceptions that we know to be true as life lessons, applying them in our real world situations on a day-to-day basis. And that can take so many different varieties of forms, right? It's basically like the result of maturity as well. Acting in a truly mature way means to develop a certain sense of wisdom. And wisdom also speaks to the choice of cultivating all these other traits that we've discussed so far, right? To see like, hey, is it wise for me to cultivate this sense of trust and surrender and letting go, to muster up the courage to do this and that? That's the wisdom of your experiences. Moving on to number 9, which is a big one, which is patience. So imagine you have integrated all these, or kind of started your path of integrating all these insights and experiences. You move into a sense of resistance, which, at least what I ran into, is kind of this like desire for this transformation to be faster and instant, for it to be just like more accelerated, unfolding in a faster pace than it is actually unfolding, which again leads to a sense of not enjoying the journey, which is the whole point of us being here, right? Having a little bit of fun along this human ride. Enjoying it, enjoying every phase of our transformation. every phase of our integration. Not wanting things to be different than they are. But patience is the art of committing to the long-term process of transformation, knowing that true growth takes time. And on the psychedelic path, patience allows us to trust the slow unfolding of our own personal evolution, understanding that some things of great value take time, maybe years, to manifest. And it's a hard one to take on, because we want everything to be now, right? Now. I want it now. That's what our mind is screaming. I want everything to happen now. I want to integrate this now. I want to get the business going now. I want the perfect relationship now. Patience. Developing patience means to really have this bigger picture perspective of your evolution. Appreciating and embracing the pace of your unfolding. Right? If you have the trust, you'll get there. Like if you have the commitment, which we're going to come to, if you take the responsibility for your journey, you'll get to an amazing place. But patience is really talking to like this enjoyment of the journey. Of like really like take it one step at a time at your own pace. Right? There's a quote in Carlos Castaneda's books, the teachings of Don Juan. I don't know which book exactly, but it says, if a warrior is to succeed at anything, the success must come gently, with a great deal of effort, but with no stress or obsession. So we're not stressing or obsessing over our results, over the outcome of our transformation, but we're moving effortlessly, right? Flowing as the river, gently moving into this transformation of ourselves. And then it's happening, then it's unfolding. Trust that it will unfold. And also have this bigger picture perspective, like the long time horizon. Get excited about that. Don't see it like as a dreading thing. Because that's not helpful. What is it helping you to say like, oh God, it might take me years to decondition myself. It might take me years to realize my vision. It might take me 5 to 10 years to build up a career doing what I love. Oh, that's awful. Like, what is that perspective doing for you? It just makes you feel bad. Which is then bringing in a certain sense of resistance towards your unfolding again. But with this like bigger picture perspective, long horizon, you get excited about this of like, hey, wow, 10 years? Let's go. Let's do that. You can start following the principles right now, but it's like the understanding that your evolution, your transformation takes time is a wonderful one to integrate. Because what I've been asking myself when I started on this journey of transforming, I was like, what's the alternative? What's the alternative? Is it like staying in my bad habits? Staying in behaviors and ways of showing up in the world that are not aligned? Staying in a job that is not aligned? Moving maybe into another job that is also not aligned? Because I'm too lazy, too impatient to build up a career doing what I love? To build up myself so I can be the person that my ideal partner wants to be with? Being too impatient, it even applies to practicalities like the psychedelic path. Being too impatient to go out and cultivate connections that might help me with sourcing some 5-MeO-DMT. Being too impatient by going to one retreat after the next, looking for a shaman from which I can learn the traditional ways of serving ayahuasca. right? If it takes you 5 to 10 years, if it takes you 20 to find that right mentor, wow, great. You found him, right? It's like, it's powerful. It's the thing you want, right? If you have a clear vision of where you want to go and who you want to be, how you imagine your life to look like, patiently moving into that vision, patiently moving into that embodiment with a certain sense of trust, surrender, letting go, forgiving yourself, taking responsibility, being mature, patiently moving into that. So what if it takes 10 years? It's absolutely worth it. It's absolutely worth it. That's kind of like how I cultivated and integrated it. It's like, I'm still on my path, right? Right now. It's like, this is the beginning of my path. I still haven't found my mentor, the shaman, the tradition that I want to learn from, in which I want to practice serving medicine in. I haven't found my path. Might take me 20 years more. My vision is to build up a psychedelic actualization retreat center on an island with hot springs and waterfalls and mountains and a jungle and a beach. With proper education, almost like a psychedelic school. All certain types of ceremony and integration. That may take me 40 years. And if it does, I don't care. Because I'm patiently moving into that vision, which allows me to enjoy the journey. It allows me to deeply be present and appreciate each and every stage of that transformation that is happening. So patience. And then I already kind of touched on it. The last principle, the principle number 10, is 100% commitment. Dedication, 100% energetic engagement in your transformation. 100% commitment means dedicating yourself fully to the path, to your path of psychedelic integration, of transformation, of actualizing your potential without leaving room for excuses or half measures, right? Real change happens only when you're fully invested in your vision and willing to do whatever it takes to align your life with that purpose, with that vision. It might sound hard, but one principle, one truth that I have kind of lived by, which has been of great value to me, is if something hasn't happened for you, if you were not able to change this or that, it's because you didn't want it to. You don't want it to change. You might tell yourself, yeah, I want to quit weed. Yeah, I want to quit watching porn. Yeah, I want to quit these video games. Yeah, I want to do this. Yeah, I want to do that. And then you're not doing it, and then you're like, I wonder why I can't do this. There's probably something wrong with me. No! Sorry that I'm screaming so much. Or I bring this point across. It's like, no! You don't want it. You don't want it enough. Because if you truly want it, that's what I found on my journey. If I truly want something, there's no doubt in my mind. I don't want it 99%. No, I want it 100%. And I'm 100% dedicated to that. It makes everything easier. And it actually allows life to manifest the things that I truly want. Because if I truly want something, I know it's there. It's there for me. It's already almost it has already happened in my mind. And then it's just a sense of cultivating a sense of dedication to that, to live that now, to engage in my path with whatever is arising around me, right? But being fully dedicated to just align myself with that vision that I know is already there because I want it. When you're not changing in the way you wanted to, it's like you can have a look at how is it serving you? All these behaviors that you kind of have a nudge or an intuition or a feeling are not in full alignment anymore. Because they are serving you. There's a great deal of pleasure in instant gratification. There's a wonderful way how distraction and looking at our phone is serving us. As we are distracted, we don't have to deal with our emotions. We don't even have to deal with the tough challenges that might be coming up when we create a vision for ourselves and our lives, which we might want to move into. It's comfortable. It's a very comfortable space, and there's no judgment regarding this. Like, if it's a conscious choice to stay in this, to engage in this even, then fine. Like, there's no judgment in that. But don't tell yourself you want something and then you're not actually fully 100% committed and dedicated to follow through on that. A 100% commitment will make everything else easier on your journey of transformation, of psychedelic integration. Because when you're fully dedicated to your own path, to that self-actualization, self-realization, and there's no doubt in your mind, then you are 100% engaged. You cultivate a certain sense of presence with each and every situation that you're facing, with each and every challenge that's around the corner. And you embrace that. So those are the 10 traits that are essential, I found, for psychedelic integration. And I hope that you found great value in this guide to transform your life. If you're curious in cultivating these deep mindset shifts and working with me one-on-one, you can book a call. Link is in the video description. Because that's what I do with my clients. A lot of the work that we're doing in the Psychonauts Path to Purpose program is this work of psychedelic integration, and not just looking at the surface level patterns or behaviors or habits or relationships that are not aligned, but really taking a deeper look at the mindset, the limiting beliefs, the assumptions, the doubts, the fears, the perspectives and principles by which we live by, which might put structures in place which lead to a behavior, a result which is not fully aligned or desired with how we truly want to show up, with how we truly want to be. So I encourage you to, as a practical step for this guide, feel into all these 10 traits and kind of feel which one resonates most with you and which you feel would set and facilitate your transformation, your psychedelic integration most at this moment. And then contemplate that word, that symbol, that label for yourself, what it means, and how you can truly integrate and cultivate that character trait within yourself. So that was it, 10 essential traits for psychedelic integration. I hope you enjoyed this guide to transform your life. And I'll see you in the next one. Much love.